Top 10 most expensive luxury watch brands in the world. If you think luxury stops at Rolex, think again. These brands live in another dimension, where a single watch can take years to make, cost more than a mansion, and still sell out instantly. From cable-suspended tourbillons to sapphire-cased art pieces, here are the 10 most expensive luxury watch brands in the world. Starting with number 10, Audemars Piguet. AP is one of the few brands that can make steel feel couture, and the Royal Oak Jumbo Extra Thin is the pure expression of that idea with 39mm that wears like sculpture. Octagonal bezel with white gold screws, the bracelet melting into the case like it was grown, not assembled. The dial is that classic bleu nuit petite tapisserie, tiny guilloche squares that don't just reflect light, they texture it. And at the lid, the modern caliber 7121 keeps the case at roughly 8mm, adds a clean date, and still gives you a weekend safe reserve. It slides under a cuff with the confidence of something that knows it has nothing to prove. And yes, the price matches the aura. Retail for the Royal Oak is upper 30Ks, but the secondary is where you'll get the real price. You'll be spending as high as mid 60Ks to over 90K depending on condition and dial, simply because demand never sleeps. If you want the same DNA with a louder stance, the Royal Oak Offshore Diver keeps the octagon and screws but widens the shoulders, adds an internal rotating bezel, and a dial you can read through spray. It wears like a statement at 42mm with a mega tapisserie dial and AP's quick change rubber straps. On the market, recent steel divers typically sit around 28K to 40K, with retail in the low 30Ks depending on spec. AP's modern chronograph architecture seals the picture. The in-house caliber 4401 brings a column wheel, vertical clutch, and approximately 70 hours of reserve. Not just to tick boxes, but to make the watch feel engineered as a single object, not a dial with a movement inside. That's the AP effect. Geometry that calls itself out from across a room, surfacing that turns sunrise into a design feature, bracelets that behave like fabric, and mechanics that are as modern as the silhouette. Jumbo or diver, you're not just buying a watch, you're buying the design language that defined the power wrist for the last 50 years. Moving on to number 9, Breguet. Breguet is one of those names where history isn't a prop. You still see its ideas on wrists today. Breguet hands and numerals, guilloche cut in solid gold, fluted coin edge cases, and even the overcoil hairspring that became the template for modern regulation. The appeal isn't that it's old, it's that the old things still land. For pure elegance, the Classique 5157 is minimalism done with weight and craft. It's razor slim under a hand-turned dial cut on traditional rose engines. You don't get stamped texture, but real guilloche that kills glare and gives the surface that quiet shimmer. In 38mm with the fluted case band and blued palm hands, it disappears under a cuff and then wins every glance when the light swings. US boutique pricing for the white gold 5157 BB sits around 27K. If you want the mechanics out in the open, the Tradition 7057 is the modern Breguet poster child. Inspired by the old subscription pocket watches, it flips the architecture, gear train and barrel on show, bridges mirrored left or right, and twin power reserve scales so you watch the tension fall. It looks technical but somehow calm with 40mm, frosted plates, and blued hands hovering like instruments. Precious metal versions have been quoted around 40.7K retail, with pre-owned rose gold pieces often in the mid-20Ks. If you need something you can actually live in, the Marine 5517 is Breguet DNA in a daily water-competent shell, luminous Roman numerals, the same fluted case band, sculpted lugs, and a clean date. In titanium, the watch is light with a deep blue sunray dial. In gold, it goes quietly opulent. The brand has shown US retail for titanium around 23.7K, with precious metals above. And what ties all three is finishing you don't notice as much as you feel stacking up. The slow-way engine tuning, the crisp bezels, and the poised glide of an overcoil regulated train. Breguet doesn't sell noise, it sells the calm that comes from doing things the long way. At number 8, Jacob & Co. Even in a landscape full of grand complications, Jacob & Co. is the one brand that turns mechanics into theatre. The signature is the Astronomia, a literal stage under a sapphire dome. A central axis carries 4 orbiting arms, a triple-axis tourbillon, the time display, a lacquered globe, and a 1-carat Jacob-cut moon spinning once per minute. The whole carousel rotates as a unit, so the watch is never static. It's always in motion, always narrating. And the pricing is out of this world. The Astronomia Casino is around 620k retail, while other limited astronomias have gone 700k to over 900k depending on edition and stones. For pure mechanical joy, the Bugatti Chiron tourbillon is hard to beat. Press a pusher and a miniature W16 engine runs under crystal, pistons jumping while the inclined tourbillon keeps time beneath. It looks outrageous, but the stats are serious. 578 components, 51 jewels, titanium or ceramic clad titanium, and current retail ranges around 330k to about 370k depending on spec. If you want a different flavor of Jacob magic, the Twin Turbo Furious is a fever dream. Twin flying triple-axis tourbillons regulating a mono-pusher chronograph, plus a decimal minute repeater that chimes hours, then 10-minute intervals, then minutes. And this is a configuration almost no one else even attempts. Roughly 832 components, and it wears like a race car done in metal and sound. The catalog goes even deeper. The epic SF24 flips a mechanical world time board like an old airport departure sign and wears the same pricey tag at about 88k retail. The Opera Godfather hides twin music cylinders that play the theme while a tiny Don Corleone turns under glass and is commonly found at 396k to 430k depending on gemwork. And then there's the myth point, the Billionaire, a skeletonized tourbillon set entirely in giant emerald-cut diamonds. It carries the same out of a fantasy price tag at $18 million. Love the excess or roll your eyes at it. The watchmaking is not cosplay. These are serious architectures with real regulating organs, animated and finished at a level that makes even jaded collectors lean in. Then we have number 7, Patek Philippe. Patek is the brand watch nerds point to when they mean done right. You get clean lines, smart proportions, and movements that feel over-engineered in the best way. On the sports side, you already know the name, the Nautilus 58111G. Same porthole case, same blue dial that fades at the edges, same integrated bracelet that looks carved, not assembled. The update brought back the slimmer 2-piece case and the automatic 26330SC with hacking. Retail isn't public, but you're looking at about 180k to 200k. For dress, the Calatrava 6119 is textbook Patek. That sharp hobnail bezel, the clean 39mm case, and the hand-wound 30255 PS with 65 hours on tap. It winds like silk and disappears under a shirt, and pricing in white gold is about $40,970. If you want a chronograph, the 5172G is the one collectors point to. Stepped lugs, guilloche pushers, and the hand-wound CH29535 PS with its column wheel, horizontal clutch, and those tiny paint-tinted tweaks that make every push feel right. Retail is a touch over 100k, but on the market you usually see it at 55k to about 70k. For world time romance, the 5231G pairs Patek's ultra-thin world time caliber with a cloisonné grand feu enamel map depicting Southeast Asia and Oceania. It reads simple from across the table and then gets deeper the closer you look. Market data generally lands high 90Ks to about 130K when they surface. Overall, quiet elegance is the Patek formula. Up next, number 6, FP Journe. FP Journe is catnip for watch nerds with its tiny production, movements in solid 18K rose gold, and designs that you can spot from across the table without a logo screaming at you. Start with the obvious entry drug, the Chronometre Bleu. It's that why does this look so clean kind of watch. The piece is 39mm of dark tantalum with a mirror blue dial that swings from inky to electric in one tilt. Inside is the hand-wound caliber 1304 with twin barrels and that instantly recognizable gold movement plate. Getting this piece will cost you as high as 100k to about 110k for standard CBs, and the rarities like the Biblos can sail past 250k at auction. Then the cult piece, the Chronometre à résonance. 2 dials, 2 trains, 2 balances that settle into the same frequency through resonance, which is an old physics trick that almost nobody else has made wearable. Current 40mm pieces stay thin around 9.1mm, with the arc power reserve and perfect symmetry. Boutique talk puts retail 140k plus, but in the wild you see between 200 to 400k depending on metal and generation. If you want to go full flex, there's a tourbillon souverain with power reserve at 12, tourbillon at 9, and those routinely push over 300k in precious metals. It's just a reminder that FPJ isn't just clever layouts, the chronometry chops are real. And then the surprise hit, the elegant quartz line. It goes to sleep when unworn, wakes and resets the hands when back on the wrist, so you get no wasted battery. A charity edition goes as high as 420k, which tells you everything you need to know about how hard Journe couture bites. In short, you get the FPJ signature look, precious metal movements, and tiny production that keeps demand boiling. Whether you're hunting a tantalum blur for stealth or resonance for nerd glory, FPJ is one of the few brands that feels special the instant you flip it over and see that gold glow. Moving on, number 5, de Bethune. If you like independents that think different and finish like lunatics, de Bethune is the candy store. The look is instantly theirs. Mirror polished grade 5 titanium, that delta-shaped bridge glowing under sapphire, and the patented floating lugs that pivot so the watch hugs your wrist instead of fighting it. It looks futuristic, but it wears like it was custom made. The poster watch is the DB28XB Starry Sky. Slim, airy, and very DB. Heat blue titanium, a hand-set night sky with white gold pins for stars, and those ultra comfortable lugs. Inside is their long reserve hand-wound caliber with that signature architecture and around 5 to 6 days of power. Boutique price is around $95,000, which makes sense for how few they make and how they finish. Want similar poetry with dress energy? The DB25 Starry Various does it. Domed night sky dial, precious metal stars, lighter titanium case, and on the wrist it reads refined instead of loud. Public numbers put it at about 90k to about 95.7k, depending on metal and spec. It's a quiet collector darling, and you see them on tech billionaires for a reason. Need something sportier with the same sci-fi DNA? The DB28GS Grand Bleu takes the floating lug case diving, adds an on-demand illuminated bezel or dial system, and still gives you 5 days of reserve. Launch was around $93,500, but recent listings hover around £82,500 or $112,000. It's not a tool watch in the normal sense, but it hits the high-end sport itch perfectly. And 2 other touch points collectors mention a lot is the kind of blue tourbillon with its thermally blue titanium from case to screws, and the smaller DB28XS line like the yellow tones. The watches also come with a de Bethune price tag, with recent guides pegging the tourbillon at $225,000, while yellow tones was introduced in 2025 at about $115,000. Now, why does de Bethune get the respect? Well, it's simple. They offer comfort that beats most integrated steel, finishing you can spot across a room, and movements built on ideas, not gimmicks. And at number 4, Urwerk. Urwerk is what you buy when you want your timekeeping to feel a little sci-fi but with real engineering behind the drama. The house style is wandering hours on rotating satellites, retrograde minutes, and cases that feel like instruments, not watches. The cleanest entry into the idea is the UR100V. 3 satellite-hour blocks sweep a minute track, and once they exit, the display flips to orbital fun facts like how far the Earth spins in 20 minutes, and how far it travels around the Sun in that same slice of time. It's compact for Urwerk, easy to read once you learn it, and typically trades between 39k to about 46k, depending on if you want the Violet, Blue Planet, Stardust, or another variant. If you want peak machine on the wrist, the cult choice is the UR210. Same satellites, but with a snapping retrograde return at the hour and a winding efficiency gauge on the back tied to a turbine system. Although it is discontinued now, late editions like Black Hawk go for around 85k to about 110k. Prefer the current design language? The UR120 Spock rotates the display 90 degrees and splits each satellite into two opening blades as it orbits, but still wearable thanks to a curved steel or titanium case with articulated lugs. Grey market reality is at 110k to about 130k. Then there's also the tactical light side, the UR220 Falcon project in CTP carbon, hand-wound with a classic layout and Urwerk's oil change counter on the back. And if you like off-menu displays, the UR111C dumps satellites entirely with linear retrograde minutes, jumping hour drum, fiber optic seconds, and a roller instead of a crown to wind and set. And market prices for the steel editions is around 130,000 euros. So why do people rate Urwerk? Sure, the concepts look wild, but the legibility, the power management, the build, the logic, it's all dialed in. Pick the UR100V if you want classic Urwerk, the 210 if you like the interaction and mechanics you feel, or the 120 if you want the current vibe. Either way, you're not buying a watch, you're buying an independent icon. Up next is number 3, MB&F. MB&F is what you get when a design studio and a movement atelier share one brain. The shapes are wild, but the watchmaking is not a joke. If you want the easiest entry, start with the LM101 Evo. It keeps the legacy machine formula, 40mm case, huge dome sapphire, and that floating balance wheel above 2 clean subdials. But the Evo spec makes it daily wearable with tougher build, modern finishing, and the same drama under the dome. And you'll find it for no less than $77,000. If you want machine on the wrist energy, the HM8 Mark II is the fun one. Driver-style display projected through a front prism, casework in titanium and carbon macrolon, and it wears easier than the photos make you think at 47 by 41.5 millimeters. As expected, recent editions sit around $88,000 at retail. But want the wild card? The HM10 Bulldog is exactly the mood. 2 eyes for the power reserve, a big balance beating under the glass, and a case that feels alive on your wrist. Hand-wound with around 45 hours of reserve. It launched at 105k in titanium, way more for gold, and some later pieces list up to 135k depending on spec. For the flagship Brainflex, the LM Perpetual Evo takes Stephen McDonald's re-engineered Perpetual and makes it tough enough to live in. 44mm titanium or zirconium, loom everywhere, and a flex ring shock system between movement and case. Older retail quotes were around 167k, and current titanium listings float around 145k to 180k, depending on year and colorway. This is the piece that shuts down the "they only do weird shapes" argument. It's serious calendar architecture built to be worn. Bottom line is that MB&F gives you 2 clean identities. Legacy machines with classical open-worked fantasy under a dome, and horological machines with science fiction displays on the wrist. And at number 2, Richard Mille. Richard Mille is the place where space-age materials meet serious mechanics. Curved to no cases that hug the wrist, skeletonized dials you can read at a glance, and composites like carbon TPT and quartz TPT that are light, tough, and stay good looking even after abuse. The headline watch is the RM2704 tourbillon Rafael Nadal. The movement is suspended on a single braided steel cable over a micro-blasted mesh and is tested to survive over 12,000 G of shock. On strap, it weighs around 30 grams, so it basically disappears on your wrist. Launch price was $1.05 million for 50 pieces. If you want the "what is RM about" answer in one reference, this is it. For day-to-day tech flex, the RM6501 automatic split-seconds chronograph is the one. 5 Hz, integrated rattrapant, color-coded controls, variable geometry rotor, and RM has called it their most complex automatic. Dealer and auction data put them at $260,000 to over $400,000 depending on the case. But you do have pieces like the McLaren W1 going as high as $373,000. The recognizable RM for a lot of collectors is the RM11 family. Flyback chrono, annual calendar with oversized date and month, and that layered dashboard dial. And most pieces trade for about $200,000 to over $300,000 depending on edition. Want feather light and thin? That's the RM6702, an extra flat automatic inside a carbon quartz TPT case with an elastic strap, and around 32 grams in total. It's the one you see on athletes actually competing. Pricing depends on colorway and collab, but it lives firmly in the 6 figures. And it remains in demand because the ergonomics are unbeatable, the legibility is high, the shock protection is real, and the colors are in the material, not painted, so scratches don't kill the look. Finally, number 1. Greubel Forsey. If you want ultra-high-end watchmaking with real wrist presence, Greubel Forsey is the name. Think deep 3D dials, crazy precise regulation, and the brand's modern convex cases that curve to the wrist so big pieces stay wearable. Finishing is the point. Everything is beveled, grained, or black polished, but the designs are practical to read and use. For a first taste, look at the Balancier Convex S2. It's titanium, slim for the genre, and shows GF's big free-sprung balance under a clean open architecture. US retail sits in the mid-200Ks, but dealers listed at around 244K to 294K depending on spec. It's the daily Greubel Forsey, relatively speaking. If you want the brand's signature complication in a sportier package, the new GMT Balancier Convex tightens the case, integrates a power reserve on the dial, and keeps that miniature rotating globe that shows world time at a glance. It's the current evolution of GF's travel watch and the most wearable GMT they've done. Pricing varies by material and run, but you'll be shopping well into the high 6 figures. For the full spaceship look, the GMT Sport Tourbillon goes big. Lightweight titanium case, arched profile, and the 3D globe with a tourbillon. Recent listings for 2024 pieces have asked around $795,000, while older or other GMT Sport variants tend to transact in the low to mid 400Ks depending on edition and condition. Love tourbillons? The tourbillon 24-second architecture puts the fast inclined cage in a clear cylindrical case so you can see the movement from the side. Very cool on wrist. And you'll see it listed as nothing less than $532,000. But earlier double tourbillon 30-degree technique versions, including sapphire-cased specials, have crossed the $1 million mark. At the very top, there's handmade one with about 95% of the components made by hand, about 2 pieces produced a year, and it's priced around $900,000. It's become a bit of a celebrity favorite and a poster child for modern handcraft. Specs are classic at 43.5mm, manual wind, and 60-hour reserve, but the detail is next level. For collectors, the appeal is straightforward. No-nonsense legibility, engineered regulating organs, and finishing that is visible across a room. So what's your pick? Which of these names feels like the S rank of watchmaking? Drop your choice in the comments, hit like if you enjoyed the countdown, and make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the world of serious horology.